So one of the things that's come up here is carbon. So, and carbon sort of underwent various metamorphoses, you know, and there's the concept of the diamond-like carbon that has a lot more, you know, a lot more of the diamond-like structure in it. Who can be credited with coming up with the diamond-like carbon, and who actually first used that in a production disc? You guys give some insights on that?
It's Francis King. Clearly, he published earlier work on carbon.
Yeah, yeah.
And my understanding is that Cyclist was the first to commercialize it.
Cyclist is the first to commercialize it, yeah. This is actually among the things that we circulated that actually, I think Tom Gardner dug up, but were circulated before, so, yeah.
I don't know if anybody knows any differently.
Yes.
But the important thing is not a carbon work. You got a combination of carbon with education, right? At that
Yes,
time.
it's actually the system.
Yeah, without that, it's a bit different. Like you're talking about you know, this carbon oxide. Actually, poly disc have a pattern on that back in the old days, you know, 70. And we tried to do that too. And it still have a problem. Without the tube, still a problem. So it is a tube is a must. And the carbon, whether the tube can stick on it, turned out it's so critical. We didn't know. We have such a leak system. We got a nitrogen, sometimes work, sometimes won't work, even the zero, right? Find out with this carbon, the sputtering machine, we got a yellow carbon, gray carbon, and what do you call it, metallic carbon, you know, depend on date, you know, depend on the cycle time, because the sputtering machine is so long. And they're changing the humidity every time. And Gerald don't know about it, right? They change it all the time. And so, we finally figure out it's got to be nitrogen there. Particularly, originally we would get away with it. You know why we get away? We use a buff. We spray and buff it. And when buff enough, carbon sensitivity is very small. Not important. But when kind of jewelry and then all use a dip, and you don't have a nitrogen in on the surface, the dew doesn't stay too long, too good.
The glue doesn't stick without connection.
And so dew had to stay on top, have some kind of port on it attached to it, right? And that's make it work. Now without working there, you are talking about the CSS, right? The key is CSS, you weigh out just small amount till it becomes surface increase and they stick, right? And so therefore, you cannot even allow too much the way actually. 10 Armstrong is still too much.
But initially it started out because you had a leaky system that you had the nitrogen.
That's right. That works so beautiful. Right? And we also have this spray bath and get away with it. Right? So we have yellow carbon. Yellow carbon means more winter's time, right? And metallic carbon is very dry.
Okay.
So and gray carbon. So we got a guy called what is that? Charles Ding. Charles Ding said, "Hey, this is a gray carbon, not good." So it is very interesting, right?
So we had a giant inline machine, and it was all one chamber.
Right, this is the Olvax.
Yeah,
Olvac
with a
machine.
slit to make a differential pressure in the carbon section. The carbon section was downstream. All the gases from the magnetic side was flowing basically into the carbon section.
So it got everything.
And we were using nitrogen doping to control porosity in the magnetic layer. So it was always getting some nitrogen. We only realized it much later that that's what we were doing to the carbon. The second aspect is the hydrogen in the carbon. We had a system also that the panel came in and out of the sputter system. So eventually the coating gets very, very thick on the panel, and it would bring in moisture, water vapor from the outside. And well, actually it would have a lot of water in the beginning, and then things will dry out. So the initial carbon had this distinct yellowish tinge in it, and because it had hydrogen in it. And as you ran more and more longer, it would get sort of grayish. It took us a few years to realize all of this, and started to deliberately introduce hydrogen, which made the carbon much more corrosion resistant.
And eventually you ended up with, the standard practice being that you had to control the individual chambers where you were doing the deposition at, which led to a lot of the modern. Another thing which you could do history on is the sputtering machines themselves, right?
Yeah. We cannot control that. We have a unique method for controlling the cohesivity, right? By using nitrogen. And if you do that, the self-sputtering machine, we can run 2-3 weeks without changing the target, 3 weeks actually.
Right.
And the customer, one 800 volts there, one 900 volts there, all we have to do is just turn on the knob, right? And
Yeah.
can make it. So it's pretty easy for us. But turn out that nitrogen went back to the carbon side.
Well, and you started off with the Oldex, but by acquisitions like HMT and stuff like that, you know, Intevax.
Oh,
By
yes,
you
I
had-
know.
then,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
By then, we already know about the innovation, so
Right.
we intended to put it in the machine, put an extra thing there for controlling. yeah.
Right.
Everybody started with sputter carbon.
Right.
And, you know,
The commercial products were all sputtered.
Yeah, it's all sputter carbon.
Yeah.
And, you know, if people want whatever DLC, it'll just make it sound good.
It's a good name.
But if you domain and Evotech, they also have a sputtering carbon machine too, right?
Okay.
But it doesn't
So
work.
SideQuest and Datadisk, who basically just sputtered carbon in a clean environment, didn't have any nitrogen. So they probably didn't have what we now call a DLC. DLC appears in the literature much later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still the same.
It's still, that's sort of the question. There's an article from IBM in '86
Yeah.
that says the early carbon was not Diamondlike.
This is
And
Tom
later-
Parker.
That's,
by the way.
that, that's
And
not
later
true.
on-
That's not true. That's a problem. Our machine have changed from graphite light, diamond light, because depending on the time of the day, the slot that is.
Depending on which match you got.
Yeah, which batch you get, all right? And we know that. And that's what Thomas talked about that. When the system becomes wet, right? Become yellow carbon corrosion is fantastic. But we didn't know why. Until the 87, 88, somebody presented it. Because yellow carbon is so insulation, you know, it's a gigahertz, mega ohm, right? So it cannot corrode. The gray carbon, which is pretty good, right?
Right.
I mean, conductivity good, but corrosion is terrible. And you know why the corrosion? When the texture line is too deep, right? You don't cover completely. So what happened? The moisture going down there, and you got the insulation between them, you don't corrode, no galvanic effect. Yeah, we discovered that, and it's kind of interesting, right? But early time we didn't know, we just slapped everything on, we spray buff on it, and everything worked.
But I would say that the carbon stabilized as an amorphous, right, diamond-like carbon by the mid-90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
Because eventually even sputtering wasn't good enough. One
Right.
had to go
Cathodic
to iron
arcs.
beam deposition, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is today, I lost track of it. Is it
Still, I am being,
Well, how thick is it today?
CVD carbon,
And how thick is it today? 10 angstroms?
under 20.
And is that layered? Then it's probably not a uniform. Yeah, I suspect
Still
it's,
layered.
Yeah, it's got, even real thin things are layered nowadays.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question about that. Is carbon put down on a chromium underlayer also still?
No, not anymore.
On magnetic plate.
Right straight onto the magnetics?
Otherwise you'd have
The
too much
reason I
space
asked
on it.
is some TEM work that was done at Stanford detected very, very thin layer of what looked like chromium carbide at the interface between the thin layer of chromium and the carbon layer. I don't know what it contributed to the performance of the carbon, but it was certainly measurable.
Magnetic alloys have chromium usually in it, so they may actually come to the top to oxidize.
Yeah, the chrome loves oxygen. You know, it'll come out to form an oxide, passivating oxide layer on top of
That's
an
how
alloy.
stainless steel works.
Yeah, yeah, but the carbide, but you said it was a carbon, seemed to be a carbide.
That's what seemed to be there, yes.
Huh.
Just a few layers of new material.
You mean who did that?
It probably formed sort of naturally as you deposit the
Yeah,
carbon.
interface, yeah.
It ought to depend on the temperature and some other factors as well.
Whether it really was a carbide or just had some carbon in it, yeah.
Let me ask another question. Is carbon totally dense or is it porous in places?
Back in the day. Well, okay, so it's been carbon for quite a while, but in terms of the quality of the carbon, can you give any insights to that? Say back from the early 80s to say the time when you're doing the 89 demonstration?
I didn't do carbon.
You didn't do carbon, okay.
That's the last thing on my mind.
Well, I should say,
You can fly that.
That's true.
I should
Yeah.
say, is it still porous? Because there's some evidence that you get the moisture in directly, and actually with the forced corrosion test, you can pull out the cobalt material, which causes the carbon to be unsupported, and it will crack and then lift up just a little bit.
Let me ask you, do you have a texture or
And it
not?
comes out with a color that's blue.
Do you have a texture or not?
Yeah.
Or the texture disc or not texture disc? Very smooth disc?
It's a blue spot. That's
No, 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 I mean, when you do the
You must know what the
experiment,
substrate
very
is.
much polished disc or have a texture? Have a rough surface?
Were you texturing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is back in the longitudinal recording.
Give me
In
texture.
fact, I used to texture with.
Yeah,
we
you
had
see
a
what
texture
happened, let me
machine.
explain to you what that's very simple, we went through that. When you have texture disc, no matter how, but the carbon can never completely cover it.
Yeah,
So you
right.
got a hole there, that's where the corrosion started. And so when you got a yellow carbon or the Diamondlike, the insulated one, they don't form in a galvanic effect. And you are expert that, you shouldn't corrode it,
Mhm.
right? But you use a graphite like one, conductive carbon, they corrode pretty bad. Yeah.
Well, we don't have a lot of time, but that actually brings up an interesting thing. Who came up with the idea of doing the texturing to get the launch, because it was originally launched after first trying with perpendicular recording, ended up being longitudinal recording for a production disc. So who came up with the idea of texturing? Is that Fisher?
For CSS.
Well, for the discs, it was to get the longitudinal orientation in the
There
right
is
direction.
the intentional texture that you do.
Yeah, was that Fisher that did that, or?
That was magnetically needed.
Mhm.
Right.
For the orientation, right?
Yeah, that's right. Let me explain you how I follow that because.
Yeah.
You know what happened is, when I have isotropic media, I don't need to worry about orientation, right?
Right.
So we take a disc and then just polish, right after the polish. Yeah,
Right.
this follow the time when the spark, the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We polish this, we have a scratch on surface anyway, right? So first thing we did was, follow the unpick, the same thing, take a polish disc and with a scratch in there already.
Right.
Rough enough, so when the disc stick on it, and the head, when the CSS stop, you won't stick, you don't stick, right?
Right.
So we optimize our polishing, not a texture, polishing to create a texture which is good for CSS.
There are two reasons to do texturing, right?
That's already the texture anyway, right?
But for
But later on, about when the 800 was the second generation product come out, we are in deep trouble because she even complained that we, as polish this, then we have this diamond scratch, and when the head gap cause the scratch in it, just cross out the kind of face shape, right? They change the face shape. And so we are desperate. So I talked to Tom, we couldn't get this Strauss machine, get a concentric texture, not for an oriented purpose.
Right.
Just get rid of the random scratch.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? And then the data and the trimedian, they didn't know that when we didn't have, right? So when they take a polished disc without texture machine that time, they don't have a texture machine, right? And there's some buff, the sandpaper machine, but they didn't use it. So when they ship the first product, the whole modulation or cohesive modulation around the texture
Yeah,
line.
very direct,
Right,
very
the
round.
modulation. So they have a long time, they have struggled. So finally they decide by this sandpaper machine, to texture. That's what it is.
Right, right.
Those type of sandpapering, machine was used in oxide, right, to burnish the.
Yes, I think that's
oxide.
originally where it came from.
So that kind of tool, I think, was adapted by the thin film people to texture
Right,
the
right.
substrate also.
Yeah, one more thing, and that's probably all
Let me
the
just
time
say,
we
the
have.
very first disc that we sent up to Seagate, they complained that there was stiction going on, so they wanted texturing done, which was done by wrapping some 9-micron aluminum oxide paper around my finger and just going like this.
You were the texture machine.
That was all the texturing I knew how to do, and it worked.
I'd like to add
Yes.
one vignette.
Okay.
So, turns out none of the people you gave credit to invented carbon. Lemelson thinks he invented Diamondlike carbon.
Oh.
And Harry Ade.
Harry A.
Yeah, Harry Abe, yes.
Oh, yeah.
He invented the element carbon, didn't he?
And maybe cause aluminum.
Patented, yes.
All of the razor blades you buy in modern day cartridges have Diamondlike carbon on the edges.
Ah, good point.
Which they picked up from Comac.
Mhm.
Gillette, and and learned from how to do that sputtering from Comac.
Huh.
And then Lemelson sued Gillette
Gillette.
and won a patent infringement suit against Gillette.
good shapes.
Because he claimed to be the inventor of Diamondlike carbide. And then he came after the hard drive industry.
Right.
But we managed to defeat him.
There's one point
Right.
that the panel did not discuss, I didn't hear that.
1 point?
One point, that I think is very important.
Go ahead.
That is disc media defects, okay?
Uh-huh.
And the ability of the head to fly over and sustain the defects, and how that has changed and why over the years.
You mean that it can fly over the defects without having trouble, or?
Whatever.
Okay.
Would anybody like to talk about that?
We could, except I think we ran out of time here. We're supposed to be out here by 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Save that for the next.
For the next meeting, like I say, there are so many stories and so many paths we can go down, in terms of the history of any technology, and this is one of them. So, I would love for someone else to organize the next one of these get-togethers. Could be on heads, could be on some other aspect of media.
Let me quickly
Yeah.
answer his question. The printing media have this nodule, right?
Right.
And so what they do, when in the park, we use a burnish head. With the head, just burnish it and put a microphone there, operator use a speaker there,
Right.
until very clear. And that's how we solve the problem. right?
Especially the things that actually stuck out of the disc.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
when this what do you call the company? SDI, Stanford Research. Well,
Yeah.
the guy making
SRI?
the SRI,
Yeah.
making the printing media. I went to see his press. They have the same setup too. Yeah, and then okay.
Tom?
Yes.
Why don't we, the panel, give the audience a round of applause for their careful attention tonight?
Oh, indeed. Thank you very much for coming.